I can't hear you.
You can't hear?
I cannot hear.
Can you hear now?
You do. You really do.
I can hear Jim.
He's
Wow.
really interesting.
You wrote some real
you hear
notes,
me?
huh?
Wow.
Well, yeah, I had some.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
That's okay though.
You
You
can
can
hear me?
look at
Yeah,
him
but
too.
you can't hear us?
We can share.
Yeah, I
no,
can hear you.
But your headphones aren't even
gonna
on
do-
your ear.
gonna do
No,
what
I
we
got
always
it.
do.
We're good.
Your
Nah, bro.
his headphones were right here. He's like, I can't hear you.
No, I got this one. Look, I keep this one, you know?
Spatial awareness.
I don't-
Episode 6. We starting?
So how am I supposed to drink this coffee?
it's
That's
not.
it.
Or with a straw?
Just-
I got you a straw. It hurts.
Are we rolling?
Oh, that was my
We're
water,
good?
too.
We're good.
This is
We're
my
good.
water. Give me the water. Please.
Episode 6. Froning and Friends. Jason Khalipa. Longtime friend. We go way back.
Yeah.
Like when?
2010 at least, right? That was your first game?
That was my first games. We weren't really friends then, though.
Dude, remember the that throwdown in Tahoe?
Yes, I do.
Again, Faster versus
Yep.
Rogue?
Yep, I
Yep.
do remember that. That was a long time ago.
Yep, so we got to hang out there.
But not really, because we were enemies.
we were
Sworn
friends.
enemy.
Yeah, we were
No, we
sworn
weren't really
enemies,
friends at
sworn
that
enemies.
point, though. Like, we didn't know each. I think really.
Well, I mean, dude, think about it. We've gotten to know each other so many times. So, not only have we done, like sponsorship events from Rogue to
Yep.
being on like teams to being on invitational team multiple times to competing against each other every single year.
Yeah.
I mean-
I'd say, like, friends, though, we started probably 2012. Like, I mean, 'cause I was new in 11, some punk kid that just kind of, first games. You were
Well, then our team
one of
was
the largest human beings I'd ever seen. I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Me and Darren, I remember we're like, Jason's arms are bigger than my entire body.
Well, then we had 2012. We had the invitational. in
That's when we
London.
really became
Yeah,
friends,
yeah,
I think, is the invitational, all those invitational events.
Yep.
When it was me, you, Chan, and then, who were the girls?
Clever,
Becca Boyd,
but- yeah.
Clever, and who's that third girl?
Julie.
Julie.
Yeah.
Julie. Yeah. Sure enough.
Lindy was telling me some story about you at the start of some event, cutting him off or getting in front of him, and
No, he didn't do that to me. He was talking about that with Hensel. He was using Hensel's
Oh,
tactics.
just using the tactics. So what Henshaw would say is, you would kind of like before the event, because everybody wants
He
to
wouldn't
try and
dare
get.
do that to me.
oh, okay,
Come on.
okay,
But everybody would try and line up, right? And they want to try and kind of fight for spacing. And oftentimes you wouldn't have a preset location
right.
for these like bulk events, right? For other ones, of course you did. But for this one, what he would say is,
You didn't have a lane.
a minute before the event starts, just go out there, kind of stretch around, kind of act like you're doing like dynamic movement, and then like just keep doing it, and then like with the 10-second whatever, just walk and be like, "It's cool, bro. It's cool. It's cool." And he would, and him and I, we worked this so many times on the track together because there'd be like a 5 or 6 of us on the track. We'd learn how to kind of use the lane to kind of bump people a little bit. But we also learned how to do like "It's cool, bro. It's cool." So I tried that.
You don't want to make them really mad at you, but you want to piss them off a little bit.
Then, just "It's cool, bro. It's cool." And then by the time they get upset, there's nothing they can do because
Yeah.
it's 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, you got to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he told us some of those tactics. We had him on the podcast. He was episode 4, and he was just talking about many stories about you,
Oh man.
and then how basically I was the enemy for a year.
Yeah.
Every any training session was
Well, I mean, it's not like
I
I
was the
had
bad
put up
guy.
in my garage or anything. What's Rich doing?
I know,
mean, it's
right?
not- yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's no problem.
So do you have any stories from Henshaw? Because he seriously told us some classic Khalipa stories. They were fantastic.
On
do you
the
have
track.
Well, I mean, Henshaw likes to get down. He likes to drink. He likes to have a good time. And him and Heidi, they like to go out and they like to party. And he's like kind of one of those guys who plays hard and then
Yeah.
and he likes to get at it. And so we connect. We've connected over drinks many of times after.
What was
after
your
events.
first impression of him when you met him?
When I first met him, I looked at him as an expert in a field that I was interested in learning more about, and that's how we started our conversation. So it was very like professional, like, hey, I admire your work that you're doing here. He wanted to kind of test out some of his theories on a new demographic. I don't even think he knew at the time what we were even doing, and neither did I. We were just trying to create a relationship, and that's how we still are really good friends, and we talk regularly. But on the track, we've had so many. You just bond together so many times because you saw how much he wanted me to be successful, and he saw that whatever he told me to do, I would do, and I think he liked that. So we have a good
She
relationship.
told a cool story about when he was breaking into CrossFit. You gave him a coach's badge
Yeah.
for the games and how much that meant to him. And
Yeah, it's funny how it works. 'Cause, I mean, I couldn't at the time. I didn't really have like a coach necessarily. Like early on in my career, I had Austin McGee. He would program for me and do different things. But as we've gotten older and more mature, I know him and I, like, we kind of are the same way. We show up to the gym, and at least when I was heavily competing, show up to the gym, see how we feel, create something, go do it, and we would have a crew around us who got excited about it, whatever. And I think it's really important for those people who are looking for a program to surround themselves with other people that are going to push them. And not to take it so seriously, but just to listen to their body and to try and do the best they can that day. And so with him, he was the only person that really coached me because I was really looking for that endurance support that I needed help on. Everything else I kind of knew more about,
That's awesome.
Rich was saying earlier that your nickname was Ghost Rider or something. Did you guys want to elaborate on that?
My nickname.
Jason Ghost Rider?
Dre's going to have to insert the video, but I'll preface the story. We'll have to somehow get it in there, and we'll show you the video. But so me and Jason and Matt are doing a workout yesterday in the barn.
Yep.
And it's 10 D-ball or sandball cleans over your shoulder with 150 pounds, 20 cal bike, 10 muscle-ups, 20 cal bike. And basically we just did a 3-person rotation. So it was a work to rest, little fast sprints.
I was dominating everything.
And so we're like, Jason, like, you're good with everything? He's like, oh, yeah. Muscle ups, I haven't been doing a ton of muscle ups, so they may be a little hard, and I'm 216 or 218, whatever he is.
214.
214.
We weighed him today.
We weighed him today. He is 214. But he
Without
did,
his T-shirt on and his shoes.
And his shoes and his shorts. He did only have compression on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's like, the muscle ups, they'll be hard. I may cut them to 5s. We're like, no, you're doing 10. And he's like, but I got the bike. I got the bike all day. And we're like, all right, cool. And so he does his first 10 D-ball cleans fast. He hops on the bike and just starts cranking at like
Hammer
800,
down.
900 watts. And we're like, I was like
80
I looked at
RPM,
Matt
yeah.
and I'm like, you going to do that? And he's like, no, like 500, 600, I was thinking. And so then all of a sudden, Jason's hammering. And then he flies his feet off and his legs off, sits on the thing, lets it roll for a second, hops back on and hammers it, hops off, lets it roll for a little bit, and me and Matt are like, what is he doing? And so we just start like heckling him, just giving him the what if. And so he ends up, I think you did it on the second 20 of that round, and then was like, bro, what's wrong with that? It's ghost riding. And so we got into this long discussion.
Hour-long discussion.
Several. We've been in several hour-long discussions about if it's cheating or not. And I see your side where it's at least you're doing the work and you applied the energy for it to roll over those extra calories.
Yep.
However, in competition and in my gym, my space, because I make the rules, it's cheating. I feel like that.
I didn't do it the second round.
No, you didn't do the second round, but you were also around 300 watts for that second round. You did it the third round. But anyway, and so, in the rules it says you have to keep your hands and feet on the rower. I mean, because you wanted to use the row as the standard.
I think we're treading. I think we're basically doing some groundbreaking stuff.
I don't think
right
so.
now.
This is an innovation. This is cheating.
And
so
so
then you have to.
It's a fine line.
Well, I'm going to say my
close.
piece, and you can say yours. You have to stay in control of the rower, hold the handle, feet in the straps until it clicks over to whatever calories or meters. And so my other argument was, if you're on the assault runner, you're just going to run really fast, jump off, and let it coast.
Right?
Okay.
But I don't know, and we it's
I don't
a
know.
debate.
I don't know.
So basically, for a long time, I've been doing
Cheating.
this way,
He's-
right?
for a long time, he's been
hang on a
cheating.
sec. So I've been, when you do the assault bike, you're kind of cranking it, kind of cruise down, crank it, cruise down.
Okay,
Be-
hold on.
Well,
but-
I know. Because when the RPMs are higher, right, you get a
It's
much better return on the calorie. And so in the past, I'd go and I would just slow down, speed up, and I would keep everything on.
And that's
right?
completely fine.
Completely fine.
Your
But
hands
then
and
I
feet
started
are
being
on
like,
the thing.
But then back in the day when I used to race BMX bikes, we used to do something called Ghost Ride It. And not Ghost Ride the Whip, I know that song and all that stuff, but this is like old school. And what we would do is we would set up a nice lip of this jump, and we would just want to know, how does it make the bike? What happens? Does it kick the front end up, back end up? What happens? So we would go up to it fast and then Ghost Ride our bike. We just throw our bike out and it would go.
Okay. If you're in a race and you just ghost ride it and you're behind a guy, but you hammer it and let the bike go and the bike crosses and you don't, does it count?
No, but if you jump back on the bike and you kept going, I don't know what would happen. So then we started doing the assault bike, and so honestly, I don't know. I've never, I got my last year competing at the games was in 2015. And when I used the bike, I didn't do that, right? If I did it again right now, I mean, frankly, after this conversation, I didn't even think in my head for once.
Anybody would think it was cheating.
No, I didn't. Not at all. Because I figured I'm putting in the work to get these calories. The calories are clicking over, and it is what it is. But it wasn't really a thought process, but I'm also not competing at the CrossFit Games. So I think it's different, right? I'm in my garage. Hey, if I'm trying to get 20 calories, I'm getting 20 calories, right? Like, but then this guy's saying, if you're clicking over.
The best was we walked out of the barn after that, and he goes, "Bro, you really think ghost riding's cheating?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Yes, Jason, it's cheating. I don't think it's cheating. It's cheating."
Some fitness was had.
Some fitness was had.
That's about it.
No, I'm just trying to be efficient with my time. I figure if I crank it, I ghost ride it, I jump off, and then I start my push-ups. I'm doing push-ups and gaining calories at the exact same second.
Multitasking.
You could probably check some email in there too.
Dude.
Get back on.
I mean, can't get mad at someone who's efficient.
That's right.
So, I mean, that's a good point. So how was it going from being, CrossFit Games champion, highest level competitor, to being a gym owner? Like, you own so many gyms. You're very, very busy in the business world now. How was that transition for you? And
well, you got to remember when I first started in 2008, when I won the games, I won like $1,500. My first sponsorship, I think, was $800. And so it wasn't enough to provide a living for my family. And so my wife and I were engaged at the time, and I knew I needed to do something to work. And so I graduated from college in 2008. I won the CrossFit Games in 2008, and I opened a gym in 2008, right? All of them within like a 2-week span. And so from there, I looked at the sport of fitness or CrossFit as like something I loved to do. And I did it because I loved it, not for any financial gain, not because I wanted to get popular or anything like that. Now the games have shifted, right? I mean, you can, if you perform at the highest level, you can make a living that you can live off of, right? But earlier on, there was no other option. So that's when we started the business. And then organically it grew because I had the passion to be kind of an entrepreneur in that sense and grow it while at the same time competing. And then obviously until 2015. So 2008 to 2015.
So what brings you more contentment? Being a professional athlete, being an entrepreneur, or the fact that you're a business owner and you can exercise when you want now?
Oh, man. That's a great question. I mean, I've had a lot of amazing memories from competing, right, with this guy in particular, right? 2013 games, him and I went at it for a long time. 2014 games, I kind of snuck onto the podium, which was really cool. Winning in 2008. There's a lot of great memories. Running a business, I think, is really cool because you can create careers for people.
That's cool.
Probably, I'd say the most rewarding thing that I have after Ava got sick is knowing that all the work I had done, whether it be professionally competing or in the workspace, had allowed me to get to a point where when my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, I could 100% focus on her. So whatever that was, right? Whether it was the business or the sponsorships I got from competing, whatever factors played into that was the most rewarding experience for me because I didn't have to worry about money. I didn't have to worry about running the business. I had competent people to help me. I was just able to focus on her. And it was a combination of all those things I did that allowed me to do that, I think. What
kind of advice would you give a competitor, like someone like Rich or some of those guys that are competing at the highest level now, and you're looking out ahead for the future? What kind of advice would you say?
I mean, I think for guys who are competing at the highest level and they need to establish, what is kind of their niche and how do they add value to people. And I think what I see a lot on social media is a lot of people, they want to present themselves with, they want to show how well they snatch and things like that. And I think that's great, right? But it doesn't make you a subject material expert in anything because you're not adding value necessarily for people. So when the games leave and you're not looked at as an expert necessarily, you're looked at as someone who's inspiring, which is great.
Right.
But I would encourage people to try and think of what niche they could be an expert in particular, right? But there's anomalies who just kind of are who they are, and they inspire through hard work, and they teach about hard work. Or Rich, for example, has multiple layers where he talks about his faith, which is something in particular. But he's trying to he's trying to teach people like how faith plays a role in his fitness, right, and his competing. Whereas other people, if all you do is put up pictures of your butt, I don't necessarily know if when the lights come down and your career's over, what you have to fall back on. So I would encourage them that while they have some press and some limelight, to be able to look at themselves and say, hey, where is my niche? What am I really an expert in? And then develop a path to that when the career does go away, they have this new career path of actually being able to generate revenue from something that they could add value for other people.
Right on.
Wow. So you also touched on Ava, and I heard you when you were talking yesterday, you mentioned that in some ways it was one of the biggest blessings for you. And I thought
Yeah.
that was just such a beautiful perspective. Do you want to share a little more about that for maybe other people going through that or or in that experience?
I think it goes for anything, in life. I think one of the things I've learned is that right when my daughter was diagnosed, a friend of mine, his wife, basically like put a restraining order on him and took their kid. And it was super bad. And so my daughter at one point was in the ICU and my friend needed some support. And I remember just thinking to myself, my daughter's in the ICU. I could easily just not talk to my friend, right? Because it's an easy excuse like, hey, dude, my daughter's in the ICU. But I thought to myself, well, just because I have this going on doesn't mean that his life has stopped, right? Everybody has different things going on in their life from, maybe with Rich, most challenging thing he's ever gone through is through the adoption process, hypothetically, right? Maybe for you it's with whatever.
Right.
And so I think it's taught me to be compassionate that everybody goes through different things. There's not better or worse. It's just different. And to that person, it's a big deal. But I think with Ava getting diagnosed has been a blessing for us primarily because it's brought my family closer. It's shown me the true colors of my wife, which I already knew were there, but it just kind of like reinstilled them. And then it also gave me insight into a whole new world that makes me so grateful that she is going to be cured and she will be okay, whereas a lot of families who can't say that. And so for me, it's been a huge blessing just to watch how strong Ava is, watch how strong my family is, and then, get through it successfully. My father-in-law in particular, I was telling you guys earlier, my wife and I met when we were 15 or 14. And so when we started dating, he came from Iran. He was very strict. And, she got caught sneaking out of her house. It was a long story, but he wanted to kill me, right?
Like legitimately told me he was going to kill him.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I'll finish. Let me finish the kill story, so I don't just leave it like a
Right.
cliffhanger. So
He's still alive.
I am still alive.
He made it.
So my wife got caught sneaking out of the house, and she used to sneak out more than I think is appropriate now. But we were young and in love, and he couldn't let her out, whatever. And so, she sneaked out of the house. I think she's like climbing down a rafter or whatever, and so she gets caught, and her dad just calls me, just like, "I'm gonna kill you." But it wasn't like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
I am going to kill you.
Yeah.
And hangs up.
And I'm just
That's
like,
scarier.
And I'm like, sir.
Don't kill me.
No.
And so sure enough, right, I'm walking around school for the rest of like the next couple weeks, like, kind of like thinking like I'm going to get shot somehow, like walking through I like try to avoid like, like the foyers, like, and so I so everything kind of calms down. Her and I, we end up, we go to college together, get married, have a couple kids, whatever, right? So about maybe, I don't know, it was before Ava got sick, maybe 2.5 years ago. We're sitting there having beers and just hanging out. And I was like, hey, man, remember that time you called me on the phone, you told me you were going to kill me? Like, how close was I to really getting, like, killed? And he's like, I was like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how close? He's like, a 9.9. I was like, oh.
Gosh.
He's like, and then I was like, oh. I was like, I thought like maybe he was like pumping it up, And then he's like, but I had to go see a therapist to talk through it because I really wanted to kill you. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, like, he's got his beer, I got my beer.
Wow.
Just like,
What do I do now?
Cheers.
Jeez.
So, so that was kind of how that one went. But, when Ava got diagnosed, we were in the hospital for, over the span of the last 18 months, we've been in there about 2 months. But the first time we got in, so we were in for a couple weeks. We went home, and then we were in there for like another month. And that was when she was put in the ICU. That was a really bad time. But my father-in-law would be there every morning, like at 6:30. I would just walk up. I would just wake up, and I'd go down there. And normally the nights in a hospital are pretty bad because people come in and out a lot, and there's a lot of lights. And I would just wake up. I'd be all groggy. I would just see him just sitting there working. I'd be like, dude, what are you doing here? He's like, I just remember like him and everybody else should just say the same thing. It's like, where else would we be? Like,
Right.
What is more important than being here? And that same thing's kind of happened for me, since Ava's got diagnosed. I've been at all of her chemo treatments, been at all of his things. Because I always ask myself, like, what would be more important than being here right now, right? And I couldn't think of anything, and I shouldn't have thought of anything. And so, as a blessing, I think that's what it's shown me is like, I was telling Rich, I've witnessed a few families get told their child has a, life-threatening illness of cancer, leukemia, and it's just heartbreaking to watch. And I think what it does for me is it kind of reminds me to stay positive and reminds me to stay focused on the blessings we have, because I think we can get so wrapped up in the negative. And I think that when you've seen this whole different world, it just really just humbles you.
Yeah. So what would you guys, this is a question for all three of you. Would you say is the Biggest lesson or most surprising thing you've learned as being a parent? Lesson or surprise. So, I mean, it can be funny. It could be something you never dreamed of, or it can be something that you've just actually learned.
Oh,
Oh,
jeez.
jeez.
Too many.
Holy smokes.
Don't take anybody's advice. Ever.
There's no book.
There's no
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, I learned to braid hair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Never trust your kid in the house by themselves. Lakeland cut her hair last week.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Like, bad.
The whole
Hilary wasn't home.
the whole guy thing, I didn't do that like everybody, that's, get your black belt out, have a gun, have a knife, all of that. I've worked really hard I want to teach my kids, my daughters, their value so they would make good choices because I knew they were going to do whatever they wanted to do because I was doing whatever I wanted to do. So I kind of backed up really hard from that. I think that was the big deal for me. When I really kind of got into it and started seeing what was all talk and then what really worked, it was really different than kind of what you thought being a parent.
I mean, being a parent's not easy. I remember when Ava was born, Ashley had some complications, and so I got the baby, and like Ashley was like not like doing her own thing, like she was getting taken care of, and I'm like sitting there with Ava, and like none of my friends had kids at the time. I was 23 years old, 24 years old. I'm just sitting, or maybe I was 25, whatever. And I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know what to do. And like, I remember like my mom came in, I basically just gave her my daughter. I was like, I need a minute, I need a minute. And, I read a bunch of books on like sleeping training and all this stuff. And I remember like, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I read a book on sleep training. I'm going to have Ava sleep trained by the time she's 1 month old. My mom just looks at me. She's like, yeah, you're right, Jason. You will have her sleep trained. Like, but she knew,
No,
there's no
chance.
book on that, right? Like, every kid's different, and you can't really judge a parent for anything, right? Because you don't know what that parent, what they've tried, what they haven't tried. And I think that's really important that as you have children, you start recognizing, like, wow, maybe before I had kids, you would watch like a parent kind of do something to a kid, like maybe yell or whatever, something. You'd be like, man, that was kind of a little aggressive, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know the background of all of
what
that.
else you've tried or whatever it is.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a learn as you go process for sure. I think there's some best practices, but you're learning on the job.
Yeah.
So yesterday I thought it was really cool. You guys had your little picture at the barn, like 3 CrossFit Games champions. It was cool to, see that environment. But I thought it was interesting. I saw a lot of people comment and say, legends. So just from like both of you, from your perspective, how does that make you feel that people look at you in a sport and say, well, those are the legends right there? I mean, that's really powerful, to be viewed that way, I think.
You feel old.
When you start seeing OG come up,
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay,
shit,
yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, it feels good, right? I mean, it feels like you've done something in a sport, and you've hopefully paved the way for other people to be doing certain things, and hopefully you've inspired in a certain way, and hopefully you've laid the foundation for what is to come. I just hope that the sport doesn't pivot and shift in a direction that is solely focused on money and fame, but stays rooted in the idea of hard work, community, and I think that's where it was founded on. I'll never forget. Me and this guy have been on many of buses, right? Many of buses, going to different events, from waking up at 3 a.m. and going to Camp Pendleton to doing this, doing that. And the vibes on the bus were always one that the veterans kind of set the tone, right? And so him and I and others, right, were kind of like the veterans. And I just remember this one time on this one bus, I can't remember who it was. Someone was talking like a little bit like friendly shit.
Bridges. It had to be Bridges.
No. It was
It wasn't Bridges?
no,
Usually
it was
Bridges
before
is
that
the one-
clean and jerk ladder. Taminsky?
Was it Tominski?
I don't remember who it was, but there was someone who was talking a little bit, kind of like change the dynamics, right? The dynamics are normally like low key. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Yes, you're competing against each other, but you're kind of like doing your own thing, and it's a very friendly.
It's like a locker room almost. Like
Yeah.
you're just making fun of each other. Like nothing about CrossFit usually. It's just about your hair or what, just making fun of
It's
people.
a friendly environment. But I remember at one point, something was said.
It was, I know who you're talking about. Out west, where the sunglasses on the clean and jerk was talking. I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
So basically, we're sitting on the
Got
bus, and again, me, him, we're kind of sitting in the back, kind of like the I don't know, veteran crew, right? It's
Sheriff.
like the guys
Yeah.
we all know each other, right? And we're just whatever. And then there's like some rookie-ish people, And they were kind of like, they said something, and I think they said something to Rich.
Yeah, it was
And I
about
just thought to
he was going to
myself,
out clean and jerk me or something like that.
And I just think to myself, man, out of all the people that you're going to say something to, don't say something to him. Like, but
It was
that
Matt
was
Hathcock. That's who it
Was
was.
it?
Yeah, that's who it was.
And I just remember thinking to myself, like, man, that maybe that would be a turning point for the sport right there. Like when I witnessed that, it never happened before. Where like there was kind of like this talking, but not
He
like
didn't mean it bad, but he was talking. Yeah.
he was talking, right? And I just hope the sport, builds in a trajectory where it builds in a way where there's still like this sense of like mutual respect for getting to that level, right? And all the hard work and dedication that's gotten you there. And remembering that the fans kind of come first in that sense. I think it's tough for me to watch people act like
they're a big deal when they
like
just
they're
work
a big
out.
deal. Like I remember I saw one of these athletes get like rushed by with like a jacket over their head, or like when you see people intentionally. I just always think to myself, there will be one day that no one will care about taking a picture with you. There will be that day,
Absolutely.
and it's not that far away.
Yeah.
So right now, if you could take a picture with someone, you could shake someone's hand. That can make their day, right?
Yeah.
And it really can. It can make a lasting impact on them. I still have people till this day who say, hey, man, I met you 5 years ago. I sent you a message, whatever it is. You took the time to shake my hand, whatever, and it meant a lot to me. It's like, wow, that person remembers that from that long ago. So I hope that when you talk about legends, when you talk about people you remember, they dictate the sport in such a way that it stays authentic to where it started, which is built on the foundation of hard work, community, teamwork, and not getting too big for your britches. Not being one of these dudes who's too cool for school.
What's the biggest change that's positive? When you look at it now from when you started till now, and you're like, man.
Well, I mean, obviously the scale's gotten larger, right? You have more people, right? You have more tests, and you have more money available for the athletes to potentially do what they love and actually make a living from it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But the money also comes with pros and cons, right? With more money comes people who search for the money, right? But with more money also allows people who are not searching for the money, but to be able to make a living for themselves.
Right.
It's a beautiful, it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things that I know that we've really connected on is this idea, and you've mentioned it several times, but this value or values. When I hear you guys talking, you're competing not just to win, and it's not just about the money, but there are other things that are super important in your life that really anchor you off. And at Mayhem, we talk a lot about that, and I think that's something I'm hearing from you here, that there's...
Yeah. Well, you got to have the anchor, right? And I think for him, and Bailey once said it to me, and I remember I was inspired by it. Bailey and Rich both had said, like, I'm doing this as an example of like the gift that Christ has given me, right? And at least I'll use Bailey as an example because he's not here with us. Like when he said it to me this one time in Hawaii.
Dan's always here with us.
When he said it, he meant it with such conviction when I was with him. This is one time he said it to me in particular in Hawaii because I was asking him about it, that like I knew he deep down in his soul, he truly meant what he was saying.
Right.
And you can't mess with a guy that has that much purpose, because when the things get hard, he's still going to be able to push through. That's the same thing with Rich, right? And Rich has other things that he's about, but one of those is faith, right? And like, for me, I always said, if you don't have a strong internal purpose or why for doing something, it's challenging to be very successful. And that goes for many things. If you don't like your job, if you don't feel a strong purpose for what you're getting out of it, you're not going to perform very well. You're going to show up at 9, leave at 5, get a paycheck, and that's cool, whatever. But competing is not that way. If you try and compete because you want to become famous, if you try and compete because you want to make money, you're not going to get there because you need to have this strong desire that when you're, 21, 15, 9, you're on the 9s and you got to go, sometimes money and fame won't give you that internal desire.
Yeah. Those values anchor you in adversity and ground you when you're successful. Something you can always tie off to. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
That's so powerful, and that's such an incredible perspective that I've heard now you have, and I know Rich has that too. So what do you guys say when you have these young kids approach you now, and they're like, man, I want to win the CrossFit Games. Tell me what to do. Because what you're explaining is huge. Do you actually communicate that to people now, or do you guys just say, well, buddy, you got to work hard? How do you communicate? Because I know people have to ask you guys that question.
Because it really depends on the person. If you can tell they're willing to actually listen, or if they just want to hear, you're going to have to do whatever workouts or whatever. But I think the biggest thing I tell people is you got to have fun. One, if you don't enjoy what you do, you're not going to get where you need to go. And like we said with the values, that of course is a big thing. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think the same thing. We get hit up every day,
all the time.
I want to go to CrossFit, or I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games. Like, okay, good for you, man. I would just ask you 3 very simple questions, right? Is it good timing for you, right? Like, is it a good time in your life? Or are you trying to, did you just have a kid? If you just had a kid and you've never, it's just not a good time, man. You got priorities, right? Can you make it a top priority? Are you qualified to make the decision to say you're going to go to the CrossFit Games, and when are you going to do it? Like, meaning like, I could just wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm going to go, go to the NFL.
Win an Ironman.
Right? I'm going to go win an Ironman, right? And I think there's a difference between like perceived confidence and earned confidence. Meaning, I could say, "Hey, I'm going to walk up to I don't know, Chuck Liddell and get in a fight with him and win," or whatever. But I could say it all I want. But there's a difference between having all the background that you've been training for a decade. Like look at someone like Matt Frazier, for example. He comes into the sport. First year or two, he does well, but he doesn't do as well, right? But he has this huge foundation that he's been working on for a decade or longer, right? And that's the kind of thing where it's no longer perceived confidence. It's like you have the earned confidence to show up to an event and be like, dude, because of all these events, I believe I can go to the CrossFit Games. And so what I would tell people is, understand there's a lot of sacrifice. And it's like, are they prepared to make that sacrifice? Because it's not all glam and whatever. What you see on social media or what you see people portray is the portrayal they want you to see.
The best
right?
day they've had.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's not. It doesn't take into consideration all the sacrifice they've made. And so if you want to say, "Oh, I'm going to get to the games," and you think that these people are at the games are making a lot of money or whatever, you're probably in for a surprise on how long it'll take you to even get to that point, if at all. And so you got to have a deep internal reason, and having fun, I think, is a part of it. If you're not enjoying training, if you're looking at it too much like a job, you won't last very long. And I feel sorry for those people. I feel sorry for the people who are so caught up in training that they treat it like a job instead of showing up with some buddies, high-fiving, chest pumping, getting a great workout, and moving on to the next day. Because then, win, lose, or draw at the competition, you've had a lot of fun with friends leading up to it. Instead of being in the garage by yourself day in and day out, being stuck to a rigid program because you believe that's what you're going to get there, but you're not enjoying it. So by the time you actually get to competition, you're so burnt out that you're just like, you're over it. And that's tough.
Absolutely. Well, and you look at it bad.
I'm really curious. When you were competing, I think I've been around him long enough to see that he loves to train and he loves to work.
Yeah.
But then there's this kind of really ultra competitive piece of him, and you can see it when the lights go up. I mean, he just goes into that space. What was that for you?
Yeah, I think him and I, we aligned very well on like the idea of like, working out, having fun, hard work. I still enjoy that. It's just a little bit different now.
Yeah.
Like I still wake up every day really early, go in my garage and work out. And I love doing that because it makes me feel good when I'm done. I feel focused. I feel refreshed. It's just not the same level I used to be at with the push necessarily. And then with the competition side, I don't think I have necessarily as much of a fierce competition perspective as he does because his is very unique. But obviously I'm very competitive, right? But I think that at some point, if you put in enough work and you love to work hard, you don't need to be extremely competitive to be successful because your hard work will shine through. Mm-hmm. And you just got to, obviously want to win because you want to do the best you can to, you want to do the best you can.
Yeah.
But I think his competition spirit is something, a little unique to a lot of people.
Right.
It's fierce.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing now physically that you're not necessarily training CrossFit at 1,000,000 miles an hour? What else? What are the things you're doing?
I mean, obviously I do CrossFit every day. I like doing jiu-jitsu. I do jiu-jitsu 2 to 3 times a week, depending on how much I travel. So, for example, I was just in Florida. Now I'm here with you guys in Tennessee, and I leave for Malaysia on Sunday.
You swim a lot, too, when you travel?
I swim. When I travel, I swim. But obviously I don't swim as well as this guy.
Hey, you crushed those hundreds.
He did great.
So here's the thing.
It was the funniest part was he's like, yeah. I'm like, we're going to swim tomorrow. He's like, cool. I swim a lot when I travel. And I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, well, how much are we going to swim? About 2K.
That was a long way. when I swim, when I travel, I'm thinking wake up 6 a.m., hit a little pump on the whatever, go swim like, 6 laps, feel good about it, feel refreshed. Not, 100 meters, or 100 yards, every 100 meters every 2 minutes. It wasn't the length, it was the time that was required. Down and back, down, back in 2 minutes.
10 times.
10 times.
And then kick.
Oh,
The best part was
how many seconds between recovery?
No, it was on the 2 minutes.
On the 2 minutes,
So, I mean, I was swimming all mine 131 to 133-ish.
So you got about 25 seconds,
I
then you're
was
back.
getting about 30 seconds.
I got 3.
Yeah.
So I did 3,
I
and I had to
understand.
take a little break. I got 2. I took a little break. I got 2, and then I kind of finished them out. I did all 10.
He did all 10. He
did all 10.
looked at me. What did he say?
That was the best part.
Don't worry, the work will get done. That's what he told me.
That's
I said,
his
Jason,
character,
I said,
you know?
what's rep are you on, or what set? And he goes, don't worry, the work will get done. And so then he's still
Can
swimming.
I use that from now on?
I'm like
really
dying.
It was mid-stroke. He's like, the work will get done.
And I think he walked to the wall at some point, ghost road to the wall or something.
Go swam.
I definitely ghost swam to the wall. Definitely.
And then we had to do like 8 kicks on the 130. And so Jason was still finishing the swim, and there was 3 or 4 of us that went ahead and started the kicks. And Jason just starts kicking as soon as he gets done swimming. And we were going on 130, and so he just kept kicking until he caught up with us. And he goes, hey, how many of these are we doing? He basically kicked a 400 to catch back up, and he did. He did good.
That's awesome.
Well, no, the worst
You finished
part
the
is,
workout the
I'm
same
like,
amount of
hey,
time
bro,
we did.
Like, I thought we were done. I was like, hey, bro, what are we doing right now? He's like, oh, we're doing the kicks. I saw him doing the kicks. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I was like, we got like maybe I did like 4 of them. I look, I'm like, bro, how many are we doing? He's like, 8. I was like, 1, 2, 3. I thought to myself, like, 1, 2, 3, 8. I was like, God dang it.
I mean, oh, that's so funny. Well, so other than swimming yesterday.
Yeah. Swimming. You do.
So like I think all athletes
Casual swimming. That's not Rich Froning swimming.
I'll get to working.
That's different things in different years. You talk about 5 years ago, Rich Froning swimming wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So you guys, all athletes, like I think will have white moments, like the ones that you remember, basically in slow motion, like maybe your defining moment. Do you guys have any of those, like that literally is a memory in your head that is kind of reeled in slow motion?
I think we replayed one of those for you the other day, didn't we?
Well, the burpee bar chasers in 2010 CrossFit Games. That was a rough one. That was a white moment where, like, you know, things went dark. I lost my control of my body. You know, that was at a time where I didn't really know how to like control my nerves,
Pacing or anything.
and that's where I got just screwed. But like a good moment,
Yeah, in a good way.
Sorry, Jason.
a good one. Probably my 2 favorite moments of the games, probably ever, were probably the burden run
And the half marathon row?
and the half marathon run. I'll tell you why.
Because you smashed all of us?
No, it wasn't because I won. So I've won multiple events just like he has, right? But most of the time when you win with like a couple seconds. You win by like maybe a couple reps, right? And so you know you might win maybe a little bit ahead of time, but not that far ahead of time. When we did the 2K row into the half marathon, I knew I was going to win for like at least 5 minutes, because what was happening is it took like, I don't know, an hour and a half or 2 hours, however long it
You
took.
only knew that you were going to win for 5 minutes into it. You knew you were going to win.
No.
It should have been 5 minutes into it.
No,
you
because
knew you should have won.
you know, because I kept the gap making bigger, and I remember at one point I looked at the clock, I looked at how many meters I'd left, I looked at the distance between the next person behind me. I was like, statistically, there's no way that this person can catch me, even if I was rowing a 3-minute pace, whatever I said to myself. So I knew at that moment I had won that event, and so it was fun for me because I was able to finish out the rest, knowing I was going to win. Where instead of at other times you barely win. The burden run was the same. You know, the night before we did that event, we went out there and we got to like brief the workout, right? So they briefed us. They said, hey, you come in here, you do this, you do this. And I remember going into the arena and being like, dude, it'd be super cool to come in here first and just have all the people kind of cheer. That would be fun. Like, that was what I was saying to myself. Like, that'd be a cool moment, right? And I was able to accomplish that moment. And that was really fun too, because it was the same thing. Once I got on the sled and I pulled it halfway, I knew I was going to win. And so those were the moments that I remember, because you had time to actually embrace it. Otherwise, you just kind of like, you finish and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had.
I don't know if I've ever really smashed an event like that. I mean, anytime we were in the tennis stadium, any event at night in the tennis stadium was just always fun, even if you didn't win it. But just like having that, I remember.
That's good energy.
There was the down and back chipper that we did. I won that event. That was in the tennis stadium. There's like, what's kind of funny is you never hear any of the music. Like, I couldn't tell you any song that's ever played except for like 2 times. There was Remember the Name in 2014. It was the handstand walk, GHD, and then overhead walking lunge. That's one of the songs that I remember. For some reason, it just stuck out in my head.
That was in the soccer stadium.
Yeah, I did end up winning that event.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just like a couple. I mean, like I said, anytime that the games, the weekend was over and I knew I was going to win, was always fun. in 2015 or 16 when we won the Murph, the team Murph, the 16 when we were so far, like we'd passed people that were just starting the run and they were like in second place. We knew we were going to win. So that was kind of cool. It was similar to that because it was like an endurance event where I've never really won a long endurance event. That was kind of cool. And it was the first event of the games. It was under the lights. We were in the soccer stadium. That was really cool.
Blessed.
Well, him and I, we've had some good little back and forths and throwdowns. And, you know, there was still the clean and jerks from 2014 was just the only time where I was like, I think I still am curious to this day. Like it was a double grace, and I kind of like I knew him and I were just like remember
we were out in front.
We were out in front significantly, and I remember thinking to myself like, I think he got me by 1 rep, and I always remember thinking to myself like, man, I wonder if I had just like put on some afterburners, if I would have caught him, but I don't know at that moment I cared enough because I still felt like I was doing so well on both the events it would hopefully bump me into third. But those are the kind of moments that. For anybody listening who's a competitor, I've had a few of these moments that I regret. And so when you're done competing, you reflect back on some of these, and there's been 2 of them for me that I regret. The first one was in 2012 or something of that nature. I was in 4th place, and Kyle Kasperbauer was in 3rd. And for me to beat him, I would get on the podium, right?
That was the
for him.
Benchmark workouts, the finish with
multiple
the benchmark
workouts. And so I had gotten myself in a position where I was in contention for the podium. At the time, that's all I really cared about. Like, hey, I got to get into 3rd place. So we're on Fran, and I mean, obviously he's built very well for Fran. But I was like, you know, I'm going to give it my best shot. If I beat him, I get 3rd. If I don't beat him, I get 4th. That's what I was thinking. And so I remember we get to like the 15s, and he kind of took off. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to get him. I'm going to get 4th. Like, so I kind of cruised on the 9s, not like cruise, but at that moment I was exhausted. We'd already gone through 15 events. I was just exhausted. I just was over it, right? I think you were like, you didn't even have to do that final.
I didn't have to do Fran. I did it. I didn't want to do it. I did it.
But I got to the 9s, and I was like, you know, and so I kind of backed off a little bit. And I finished the event. I looked at the scoreboard, and I ended up dropping a 5th. And that was one of the regrets for me. And I'm not to say that, I don't want to say that I would have still stayed in 4th, but I think I could have had I finished harder. And I backed off because I thought that I wasn't going to get this podium spot, and I didn't really like execute the best of my abilities. I ended up losing an additional spot. And so I reflected on that, and I always wondered the same thing actually with him with the 2014 games. I was always curious, like, you know, if because him and I were so much in the lead, he got me by 1 rep on this clean jerk. I'm always wondering, like, man, I wonder if I could have done it. But for anybody listening, you know, those were the only 2 events ever that I said to myself that. Outside of that, I've always felt like I gave the best effort I could, and where the cards fell, they fell. But those were the only 2 that I always kind of questioned in my head. And there's no way to know, right? And you kind of leave there like, damn, you know. I mean, obviously, whoever won, right? Like, you know.
How does that experience translate for you now today? I mean, how do you use something like that perspective in your life now?
Well, I think like the one with him was a little bit different because that one was different.
Overall placing didn't matter, really.
Yeah, but the Kyle Kasparov one was a particular one where I remember reflecting after the games and being upset with myself that I intentionally backed off. With him, I don't think I intentionally backed off. I just think that like maybe because we were doing singles, you know, I thought to myself after, man, if I had just strung a few at the end, right? But like I wasn't intentionally backing off to get him. I was just keeping the same pace I had been, and I wondered if I could have sped up. That was so. I guess I was a little bit different from Kyle, where I reflected after the games to be like, man, I intentionally slowed down because I didn't care, but I really did care. I didn't put in like it didn't. It wasn't a good reflection of all the hard work I had put in leading up to the games. And so I think what it did for me after those games is never want to have that experience again. And then it also just shows it kind of relates into life and other stuff where it's like, you know, you want to really make sure you put your best foot forward, and wherever the cards fall, they do. But you never want to have any regret that maybe you could have done a little bit better. You could have done a little bit of this, because you always wonder why. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons to bring up a subject that's controversial with steroids, right? One of the reasons why I've never, ever dabbled in them is, first off, when I got into the sport of CrossFit in 2008, there was a whopping $1,500 on the line. So it didn't really make sense to try steroids, right? And then in 2009, same thing. There was $5,000 on the line, right? And it just didn't make sense to even pursue that. But it also, one of the reasons why I never looked into those substances at all was because I would always ask myself, I would always wonder, and for those people who do steroids, I'm sure they ask themselves this very simple question: could they have accomplished what they have accomplished if they didn't do the steroids, right? And what kind of lasting impression does that have on you? Like, take Lance Armstrong. I think he probably would have still performed potentially just
Pretty
as well
well.
without blood doping. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't win the Tour de France that many times without a lot of dedication and hard work, right? But all of that is nullified
because
of that, right?
Right.
And
Or
I always ask
choices.
myself that question is like when I was done competing, now that I look back on it, I never have to ask myself, oh, would I have been on the podium that many times if I hadn't been on steroids, right?
Right.
Because you wouldn't have known if you could have done it on your own ability. So it feels good to know that, but for those people who are pursuing that, maybe they should think about that.
Absolutely.
I don't even understand how it gets to that point because I feel like I don't know anyone doing steroids and I don't know what it's like to do steroids. But as an athlete, I don't want to be in a position where it wasn't because I did the work. Like to me, I feel like it has to be a personality type or desperation. Like, I don't know. I'm not in their lives and I'm not going to judge them for
or
it.
if you
but
felt like everybody was doing it. See, so it was, in some sports, I kind of get it a little bit where if every single
Everybody's doing
person
it.
is doing it,
but that's like cycling. Like
That's
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to offend
Yeah.
any cyclists,
No,
but you know what I mean. Like
But
like
that's what everybody says. And then it's not a real test. It's an IQ test. I guess I'm not smart enough. Like I don't even want to look into it because I feel like I would screw it up somehow. And then you have to live with, well, what if I do get caught or whatever? It's
Why?
why
Yeah.
just not even do it and you don't even have to worry about it.
you don't have to worry about it. And you don't need to do it. I mean, if you really, I think I thought that with Gerard putting out there that he says that, quote, a lot of it's bad that I got caught and there's a lot of other guys doing it or something of that nature,
Yeah.
right? End quote.
But no, if you're gonna be a man and say that, then call the people out that you know are taking it.
Well, you and I
That's-
were talking about that earlier. Is that like I felt like that was a little bit of a stab to certain people because like I've personally never done anything, and I've been on the podium multiple times. I can't speak for Rich. I don't think in his entire career he's done anything, right? And so I feel like by him saying that, it kind of like pointed fingers at everybody in the sport, right? Because he didn't quantify who those people were, and I thought that was a little unfortunate. I wish he hadn't have done that because it leads to a ton of speculation. And speculation is not fair, right? Because
That's a great point.
it just why even open that door to speculation? Because all that does is just kind of makes you look like it just kind of makes you look not in the best light because you're just trying to like create different channels of blame for
trying
other people,
to divert the attention from
the
you.
attention
Right.
instead of just saying it like it is. And if he
Hey,
thought
I
other
screwed up.
Yeah.
And he did. And we're talking about Ricky Gerard. Like that's the example we're using right now.
Well,
we're not directly talking to him, but he in his admission or whatever, he did say, "Hey, I took it. I screwed up." But then also kind of backtracked a little bit, and I didn't really just be a man and say, "Hey, I screwed up. I did this. I don't know if he thought he could get away with it or if he thought whatever, but it's just I don't know."
I just thought it was unfair that he led to so much speculation.
Yeah,
right?
that's a good point.
I appreciate coming out saying what you got to say. I mean, I don't know him personally, so I don't have any opinion on him. I just don't like the fact that he would lead to so much speculation. I thought that was unfair. And I would say it to anybody who put that out there, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like us saying, a lot of the top athletes are taking. It's like, well, what does that mean? What
Right.
is a lot? What
Yeah.
is
Is a lot 5? Is a lot 10? What are the top
yeah.
athletes? Are we talking top 10? Are we talking the guys who won? Like, just if you're gonna say somebody's taking it, call them out.
Right.
You want to be a man about it, then call them out.
It's like we talked about earlier, and I think we've had this conversation. There's two different kind of perspectives. There's a win at all cost. We're going to do whatever it takes to win, or we're going to win with purpose. We're going to win with this idea of values and a why and with something at the end of that. And I think I was faced with that steroid thing early in high school, and for me it was, I'm not doing that because it's not me. If I do that, it won't have been me, and I really want to measure myself here that way.
right?
And we see, I come from a football world, and there's at some of the universities a win at all cost type of perspective. We're going to do what it takes to win, and then we're going to build better people, and we're going to do this the right way.
Right.
And that's like a giant culture war within sports.
Yeah, and I get both sides. It's just for me, I chose for me that I wanted to reflect back, and I also never really had too much pressure about steroids. Like I'd be lying to you if I told you that a lot of people, frankly, I don't think anybody has ever came up to me and be like, "Hey man, I can get you on some really good drugs."
Right.
I think that if I had wanted to pursue it, I could have. I do believe I have.
Easily.
I know people who could figure it
Yeah.
out, and if I chose to, but that wasn't something I wanted to go down.
Yeah.
Never once crossed my mind.
No.
Yeah.
Sure. So I have to go back to the row event real quick because Henshaw's one of my favorite people. Was he were you working with him when you won that marathon row?
I was, yeah. So he's an interesting.
Was he like running through the stadium?
Oh my God! You know. So I mean, with him, it was a lot about hydration and also like goo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was all about goo, and he was all about I got to get you these.
What's goo?
The little
Like
little,
electrolyte packets.
Yeah.
gel
Oh.
packets.
So like at a certain point, it's like, hey, when you're this time in, I want you to kick down one of these. When you're this dude,
Yeah.
And so I listened to him well on that, and I think from a sugar perspective, I think it really helped. And
I tried to eat a payday and almost died.
You're rowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
like peanut butter, like
We'd done a couple like longer road bike rides, and it got really hot one time and got like super depleted, and we stopped at this like little gas station in the middle of nowhere, and I just walked in, and that's literally all that was there, and I was like, I'm gonna eat a payday, and it helped immensely. So I was like, great, all right, I'll just have one of these just in case. So in the middle of the row, I started feeling like that, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna eat this payday. It's a whole lot easier to eat a payday when you're riding a bike
and when you're
than
rowing.
when you're rowing. I thought I was gonna suffocate and die. It was not fun. I took like one bite, and I was like, I'm gonna die. And, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Henshaw's just
Henshaw's
running
the
around,
man.
doing
He
his
gets
thing.
so excited, so I just figured he was probably like hopping around the rower, like
Yeah, we were. What year was it? I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it was 2014. And there was this run event. We had to run 2 times around. Oh,
It was the bird run you had to.
No, not the bird run.
Oh, the triple threes.
The triple threes. You had a row, double under, and then run. And so I got off the row first. I got off the double unders with I think it was with Rob Forte, if I'm not mistaken. I think him and I got off everything pretty much the same time. So we go off on the run. I was in the lead, which I had anticipated because I was a good rower, and double unders are kind of like whatever. But I knew the run was gonna be hard, and the run was a lot harder than I thought. So.
Tell me about it.
Oh yeah. So it turns out that the average clip that people were running for, I think, how many miles was it? Was it 3? For 3 miles, I think the average was like 6:30. I think that was like the average.
I brought that
Wow.
average way down.
And so I was going around, and it was 3 laps, and I was on like a lap. I was on my last lap, and I had dropped down to like I think like 10th or 12th at this time, somewhere around there, right? And I remember Henshaw, and maybe even Garrett, because I don't think he was competing that year, were just stand there. And Henshaw's like, he's like, you're about 100 feet away from Spiel. Go get him, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember I got like this like internal drive. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to get him, And sure enough, like I run for like maybe like 20 feet, and I get like this burst of energy. And then all of a sudden it's like, and right back down. I just remember like looking back and looking at Chris and be like in my head, like I feel like I let down,
him
like
down, yeah.
like I'm sorry, Dad.
We've had a couple of those moments with Chris where you feel like you let him down.
Oh man,
But you hear him. That's like at the games this year when we're running with rope. You knew where he was at all times, and you're like, oh, okay.
He told Hewitt to drag Darren like a dog. Darren's not the best swimmer, and Hewitt's a really good runner. And Hewitt's a decent swimmer too now. And so Hewitt gets out of the water ahead of Darren, and Darren has gotten a lot better at swimming, but he was like backstroking and whatever, almost died. And so he gets out of the water. Apparently he's like blue and like won't walk up to get his shoes on. It's like taking his time, and Henshaw's there, and you know how passionate he gets in competition. And so he looks at Hewitt. He's like, "You drag him. You drag him like a dog." Talking about because we had those ropes or whatever. And so he just, sure enough.
I mean, Darren said he was looking for a place to throw up where there wouldn't be cameras. Like he was holding it in.
He didn't want to be
like,
that guy.
He was like, I mean, it was, Henshaw, he's wonderful. So do you have any, obviously like high energy, that's you, and you operate a lot of businesses now. Do you have any daily like non-negotiables that you have to do every day? Like Rich goes to Chick-fil-A
every day.
I know, I'm just kidding. It's just
lot.
a joke. But anyway, do you have any like daily non-negotiables that you do every single day?
Well, I mean, I like to get up early. I like to exercise early. I like to just some type of exercise, right? Like again, nothing crazy, but get on a spin bike for 30 minutes, whatever it is. But for me, I like to incorporate this concept that I've been working on for a long time in my own head, right, in my own mind, which is called Amrap Mentality, and that's the kind of mentality I try and create throughout the duration of the day. And it's something I've really been working on to try and be more present and focused in the different areas. So if I'm on a podcast with you guys, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to you, I'm not doing anything else, right? If I'm working out, I'm trying just to work out. If I'm on the phone with people or I'm working, then I'm working. And I think that's what I've been trying to incorporate is this idea of like segmenting the day into anywhere from 30-minute to like 2-hour blocks. and trying to get the most done during that time as I could. So just like you guys AMRAP'd your workout earlier or whatever it is, we could AMRAP the podcast, right? Try and get the best content that we can in an hour. Or we could AMRAP, for example, emails and phone calls. Like I got up early this morning, I answered emails, and that was just my time to be present on business and then get to other stuff that we're doing. And so that's what I found has been really effective for me.
I like that. That's awesome. Do you guys have any daily non-negotiables that you can think of at the moment?
Oh, shoot, for me, the whole diet thing's a big deal. At this point where I'm at in life, I'm trying to be.
So what does that mean? You take care of that like every day you eat as well
right
as
when
possible?
you get up, I have the same things that I do all the time. I can't get away with not doing that and being really intentional now. So that's a big deal in my life.
No, I don't really have a ton. Obviously I work out every day, so that's a non-negotiable most of the time. I have, I go in, I wouldn't say spurts, but luckily now my phone has a little update thing that tells you how many days you've read the Bible, and so like you try to. Now it's kind of cool that you have like a streak that you're trying to stay with. So that's something I've been doing lately for sure.
Cool. What's that called?
It's just the Bible app.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
And
That's
so
awesome.
try to get in the Word every day. Obviously I want to hang out with my kids and my wife, but doesn't mean that's stuff you're going to do anyway. Not really a non-negotiable.
Solid.
What about you, Ellie?
My daily well, I'm obsessed with podcasts right now.
Random facts of the day with Ellie?
Yes. I always pray first thing when I get up, and I try to learn something. Like I have like a couple.
What'd you learn today?
I had to take notes because this is a little complicated.
What did you learn?
Okay, so
here we go. Fact check, El. Dre, get it ready.
What do you think the most popular sleeping position is? There's 9, and they tell you things about your personalities.
9 sleeping positions.
Yes. So what do you think is the most popular sleeping position?
On your side.
Which is called because there's a couple on your side.
Where your shoulder.
The fetal position.
Fetal position.
Okay,
yeah.
so 41% of people sleep in the fetal position. So wait, I gotta tell you.
Knees to chest fetal position?
Yeah, like this. Like your knees are up, your arms are up, and your knees are up.
That's submissive to me.
I
That sounds weak.
I assume a lot of people are on their back.
Sounds weak.
Right.
Okay, so
I fall asleep on my back.
That's called the soldier.
Soldier.
Yeah.
I fall
How
asleep
about
on my
your
back.
stomach?
I fall asleep on my back with no pillow. That's how I fall asleep.
Okay, so you're a soldier, which means you're quiet, reserved, and have strict moral code. But see, I fall asleep like that, and I'm not quiet. So the on your stomach is called the free faller.
The free faller.
Every once in a while, I end up there with my arm under my pillow, just like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But who made up these names?
I know, and I'm like
the free faller.
It's
and
Ellie's
the
fact.
soldier.
It's Ellie's
Wait,
facts.
you're not even done. The log is on your
Which
side.
one's the log?
On your side like this.
But how is that different? So the fetal, your knees are up.
Your knees are up and your arms are up. The log is just you're on your side.
Now, I can't speak for everybody, but I'll speak for myself. First off, I don't know exactly how I sleep because I'm sleeping, but I imagine that at times when I wake up, sometimes I wake up, I'm like, oh, I'm on my back. That's odd. Like I didn't think I
don't know
started
how
that
I got
way.
there.
Right?
Yeah,
So-
that's the
And then
same way
sometimes
with
I'll
me.
wake up and be like, oh, I'm on my stomach. So what happens if you transition? Then am I a soldier at first? Then I like to free fall?
And you haven't heard of the yearner, the stargazer.
What's the
and
yearner?
The starfish. The yearner means you fall asleep on your side with your
yearner.
arms like this.
No.
No, that's not comfortable.
Well,
How's your head?
none of this is accurate.
no, yeah. Ask BBC.
Oh, BBC.
Wait, where are we getting this information?
This is America.
No, this is from the lady who
BBC, this
No,
is
this is
America.
I can't support any of this.
Nope.
she's a
Cut this,
scientist.
Dre. She's a scientist.
What about the stargazer? What do you
She's
think that
a
is?
scientist.
Stargazer has to be something on your back.
With your arm behind your
The
head.
Yeah.
stargazer.
Yeah.
I don't know who sleeps like that. but
Tri
it's-
sleeps like that. He sleeps like this.
that means you hold your friends dear to your heart if you sleep in the stargazer.
He's a pretty happy guy, and he has
I
a lot
don't
of
know-
friends.
I don't know what kind of apps, or I don't know what kind of podcast you're listening to.
I don't know.
This lady is a
This is what you
behavioral
learned today.
psychologist, and she supports the 9 sleeping positions.
Okay. All right. Hey.
How do you sleep, Jim?
Oops.
I sleep on my back. I mean, it's nothing.
Do you stay asleep on your?
I do.
So
I go
how
to
does
sleep
she?
on my
but
back, and I stay on my back.
What's her
and
argument for people that like? So literally, I'll fall asleep on my back with no pillow. In the middle of the night, I'll wake up sometimes, and I'm on my back still, but I have a pillow. Don't know how it got there. Sometimes I wake up and I'm on my side with my arm under my pillow, and my hand straight out or to my side. And I rotate. So I'll
one's
sometimes,
that?
so I
That's-
literally, I'll start back, I'll go side, I'll flip to the other side, and then sometimes I go free fall.
The thinker. That's your second one.
The thinker.
So this isn't you. You're not emotional between two extremes.
Nope, that's not
Let's
me.
just stick with soldier.
So I don't think these.
Did you
I'm
also?
out of this
vague.
conversation.
It's a little vague.
I'm gonna
I
have
think
coffee.
so. Did you know that a caribou, the day it's born, is faster than an Olympic sprinter?
It's interesting.
That's an interesting fact.
Caribou is also a reindeer, correct?
I don't know. Maybe
Caribou.
more
know,
research
man.
necessary. Do you want to hear one for your health? This is a good health-related fact today. What kind of salt do you guys use when you salt things?
I don't really use salt.
That-
Kind that my
Not
wife
on-
puts in
not
the shaker.
Ashley uses that one that's like the, like
The grinder, sea salt.
like the sea salt, the one that's like little flakes and like you use your fingers and you.
Yeah, that's sea salt. So, table salt has.
Caribou is a reindeer.
Oh, well done.
Random
that.
fact.
Yeah. Table salt doesn't really have a whole lot of minerals. Sea salt has about 40 minerals. Pink Himalayan sea salt has 80 plus minerals. So all salt is not created equal, and you should spend the extra $1.50 on the pink Himalayan sea salt. It's not just fancy. There's
It looks
80
pretty.
plus minerals.
How about the black salt?
That's fancy.
Yeah.
That's good. If you go to a restaurant and they offer you different salts,
Yeah, Ash and I stayed at this hotel one time in Mexico, and they brought different salts out with champagne. Didn't do a damn thing for me, but it looked super fancy.
Yeah.
Which salt are you when you get beat? You remember that, Dre? Remember that, Dre? How
What did you
salty
say to me?
she was?
I didn't understand. It was like
So
There was-
salty. Dre whipped her in the pool on a 100.
whipped me. Oh, you didn't whip me. I don't even think
he
you.
smashed her. You
We were the same body length.
Ellie, for
Salt.
the record, I think you're a phenomenal swimmer.
She's
And
a
I'm
great
just-
swimmer. This was a sprint, though.
I'm just humbled that after 3 on the 2 minute, honestly, I thought I was going to need to have that lifeguard that was sitting there jump in and help me.
You know what she would have said? Stand up.
It's only 4 feet.
It's only 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did think I thought that was random. There was a lifeguard there.
Yeah,
Gotta have a
usually like
lifeguard.
they're just reading or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sure we're getting close to the end here, but what is something that you are super excited about right now? Like a project, business, anything? Like what excites you right now?
Well, I mean, well, the most exciting thing, and obviously this is like cliche, but I'm sure you guys are going to agree with it, is that Ava's treatment's done in March.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I mean,
It's enough right there.
That's
Boom.
I mean,
You don't need
Nailed it.
anything else.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, 2018 is hopefully going to shape up to be a phenomenal year because her treatment's done in March. We still show up to the hospital every month for the next X amount of years to confirm things, but her treatment of like steroids and all this other stuff is done in March. So that by itself is obviously exciting, right? We also, I've been working on this book, the Amrap Mentality book, for so long, and so I think we're finally going to just.
That's so
Put it
cool.
out.
You're writing a book.
Well, we wrote it. I mean, I wrote it, and I wrote it before Ava got sick, and then after she got sick, it re-changed my thoughts. So now it's about now it's kind of repurposed itself to be philanthropic. So all the money I make from it is going to go towards kids fighting cancer. Obviously, that's a big push for my wife and I. Right, we've been very blessed, and we want to make sure that we continue that on. And she's done a great job with this thing called Ava's Kitchen. She put on an event last year. She raised $200,000 in a night. That's
Wow.
And what we've been able to do with that money is give families like mini Make-A-Wishes, which has been really cool.
That's so cool.
Some of these families, so we've done a Make-A-Wish, and it was great, and the organization is phenomenal, but it takes a while, and it takes a while to get, and there's a lot of paperwork. So if you're not as educated, if you don't know how to go through all the paperwork, it could be challenging. So this, for us, is a little bit less paperwork, but it's on a smaller scale. So you give $1,000 to these families to go out and go to a baseball game or do something. And we've been able to do some really cool stuff for families. There's been some sad stories, right? We've had some families who signed up to go to a baseball game and their son passed away before they could even go. And it just breaks my heart, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, my thing is with pediatric cancer, I'd rather do the best we can to give memories for some of these families because that's all they're going to have left in some cases, right? In some, hopefully not many. So we have the book. Ashley's doing her thing with Ava's Kitchen, which is phenomenal. And just looking to support the affiliate community. You know, I made a commitment to, and I told Rich this, like, I'm not a very spiritual, religious guy, and him and I have talked about it, you know, a few times. And but you know, with Ava getting sick, I just felt like our backs been up against the wall so many times, and each time it's been to a point where, like, you know, like where it was really up against the wall. I feel like someone was just looking down on us, trying to really help us, and we made it through that. And so I made a commitment to support the affiliates and support gyms as much as I could for free, just to try and use some of the knowledge that I've gained over owning gyms for the last 10 years to try and help others so that they could do what they love for a living and also provide, for their coaches. So that's what I'm really focused on right now.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Outstanding.
Sponsors you want to thank? We got. This always trips people. That Matt was like, "Oh, I need a list."
I mean, your same ones, right? Reebok, Reebok, Rogue, Progenics. Let's see, RPM jump ropes, Mizzen and Main. And then obviously our gym, NC Fit, right? I mean,
Ava's
cool.
Kitchen.
Oh,
Your
Ava's Kitchen.
Amrap book.
Amrap. Well, yeah, that's all fun. I do
good
some
stuff.
fun stuff on the side, like Box to Business is like a fun thing we do. Imam of the Day is like a fun thing. I put up little workouts, but we don't try and take things too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I got Reebok, Rogue, Advocare, Reband, Realtree, Bear Complex. Obviously, we're at CrossFit Mayhem. So, Jim?
I thank God, my wife, and my kids.
There you go.
Poets?
Poets
got,
Coffee.
Oh,
We got
Poets
Whoop. We got
Coffee,
Whoop
yeah.
on here.
That
Poets
Cappuccino's
Coffee.
I
on
know.
point.
Best little coffee house in
Yeah,
Tennessee.
absolutely. Obviously, Bear Complex, Whoop, CrossFit Mayhem, Reebok. That's about it.
Cool. Episode 6. Leave us some reviews. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We'll try to talk about it most of the time. Cool. Awesome.